So welcome everyone, and thank you for being here. In this workshop of today, we want to explain you what we want to do for the Mapathon that we are going to organize as a UN GGIM Academic Network with the support of the UN GGIM network, the United Nations Network, specifically the 30th of March. So what we want to do now is, first of all, there is a short introduction given by me. I'm Maria Brovelli from Politecnico di Milano. Then there will be a speech by Serena explaining why we want to organize and which is the value of organizing collaborative humanitarian mapping. Then Michael will explain us the projects that they are doing as UN mappers and will show us how to map in a UN mappers project. And in the end, we will have question and answer and the wrapping up. As I said, this is organized by UN GGIM Academic Network and the UN Geospatial Network, and is also supported by youth mappers. Okay, so a few words about OpenStreetMap for the few people who don't know what OpenStreetMap is. OpenStreetMap is a project which started in 2004. It is the free and editable map of the world. There are several ways for contributing. One possibility is to do what is called the field work, so going around outdoor and collecting geospatial data. Another way of contributing is the remote mapping, which is called also armchair or mapathon, which is the map marathon. And it is what we will see in this workshop. And then there is the last possibility, which is the bulk import, but it is more for experienced people, and it is something that has to be done when we have a huge amount of data to be imported, and this is something that requires also of be done with the collaboration of the people, the expert people of the OpenStreetMap community. Why it is so important to contribute data in OpenStreetMap? It is so important because the OpenStreetMap data are data of every contributors. So those data are given as open data, licensed under the Open Data Commons Open Database License. And following this license, you are free of sharing, so you can copy, distribute, and use the database. You are free of creating, so you can produce works from the database, or you are free of adapting, so modify, transform, and build upon the database. As long as, so which are the conditions, you must attribute the data, saying that the data belongs to the OpenStreetMap contributors. You must share alike, so you must share the data in the same way you found them, so share them as open, and obviously must keep open. And so you see that is a sort of a virtual circle where we start with open data for building something new and giving back to the community something that is still open in such a way that other people can use our data and do the same as we did. Okay, so how can you practically contribute to this project? So first of all, the first point is to register to the OpenStreetMap website, and it means that you have to create the user ID and to choose a password, and this it's very the very easy point is that the same account can be used for all the pieces of software of the OpenStreetMap ecosystem. So you don't need to have different accounts. It's enough of using the account of OpenStreetMap for working with all the other applications that are related, connected to OpenStreetMap. Then if you want to contribute, and we will see later with Michael how it is possible to contribute, my suggestion is to use a mouse. This is not strictly mandatory, but it is definitely easier to map if you have a mouse. And so if you don't have it, please search it. And again, if you don't have an account, please go to the OpenStreetMap website, we will see it in a moment, and create your account. Then in general, what you can do for contributing, one point is to contribute mapping yourself, or another possibility, especially if you are an educator, a teacher, a professor, so part of the faculty, a researcher, and so on, a PhD student, is what you can do is to organize mapping parties with other students. They can be in presence of online, and then you can elicit the students at your university in mapping. This is very useful because not only for the community, it's for sure useful for the community because it means having more people mapping, so increasing the number of features available in this free map of the world, or increasing the quality of what was already mapped, but is also useful for the students because they will learn a lot. And what they will learn will be explained in a moment by Serena. But before closing, I want just to show you the OpenStreetMap website. So for reaching it is enough of writing OpenStreetMap and you land to this page. And at this point, if you already have an account, you know that you have to go here. Oh, sorry, I was logging in. So you have to log in, or if you don't have an account, you have to sign up. And so clicking here, you will be sent to this page where you can put your details, and therefore this is the account that you will use, as I said before, in the OpenStreetMap, but also in all the other applications. The last point that I want to tell you before leaving is that if you are from a university, as I imagine, please go to this page, which is the page of UN GGIM Academic Network. Again, is enough of writing UN GGIM Academic Network and you land to this page. And if you go to the menu and to the news and events, and then you scroll down, you arrive in the end. Here is the explanation of what we are doing now. The first one here, you have to select read more. So scrolling down, I arrive to this part which is red. Please download and fill in this form to register to the event. The event is the event of the 30th of March, when we will have the one-day global Mapathon. So please register to the event, filling this form, giving the pieces of information about your university in such a way that we know who is going to contribute, and we are able to better organize the Mapathon that day, also taking into account the time the different universities can contribute given their location. And the possible period of contribution. Okay, so thank you so much. And then I want to give the floor to Serena, because Serena will explain you why it is so important for students to learn how to map with the OpenStreetMap. Thank you, Serena.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, so I want to share with you a bit about collaborative humanitarian mapping and how and where this is done, and then also what one can do at a university. And one of the events that triggered a lot of this was the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. What you see there on the right-hand side at the top is what the map looked like before the earthquake. And then when the disaster response teams started working, they started adding data. And that was the first time, I think, that OpenStreetMap was so widely used for a disaster response initiative. And if you look at the right-hand side at the bottom, you'll see that quite a lot of data was collected. So this kind of kick-started this whole idea of the collaborative humanitarian mapping. And these days it's used quite widely. And the powerful thing about this is that it empowers the people, it puts them on the map. Anybody can use the data, like Maria has explained to you. There's no cost to it, and anybody can also contribute. So it's not something that's only there for the professionals. So today, Mikael is going to tell you a bit about the UN mappers and how they do their mapping. Their mapathons are very often related to United Nations missions and peace, maintaining peace and so on. There's also the humanitarian OpenStreetMap. They organize mapathons usually in support of disaster response. So, for example, when we had in Southern Africa some floods a few years ago, then HOT also organized quite a few mapathons where our students also contributed some data. Then there's missing maps. Their focus is on vulnerable communities, either due to floods or maybe socioeconomically or so. So you can see there's different aspects and different ways in which people do this humanitarian mapping. And then lastly, there's the Youth Mappers. Youth Mappers is a global organization, and they have chapters at 300 different universities and 65, no, probably not three, yeah, no, it must be 300 universities, 65 countries, more than 5,000 student mappers, and they do more than 1 million edits a month. If humanitarian OpenStreetMap, for example, has got a mapathon, sometimes they organize, and then the youth mappers chapters all map at the same time. So they could get together locally, but also meet other youth mappers chapters, and they've got challenges and leadership programs and so on. So it's quite nice for students to be part of that. And then just a few slides to tell you how we've used it and what our students have commented on when doing this mapping in OpenStreetMap. I find it, so the one way to use the OpenStreetMap is from a technical point of view, to teach people how to work with the data so that they get that experience. The other way is then looking at it more from a application point of view, how you use the data. But for those geometric students, this is like a really nice exercise to work or experience, to work with real data. So they have to take responsibility for what they're editing. They can't just do random stuff because somebody else is going to use it. And this has also taught them that they can't take any data at face value. So it has taught them to think critically about any data that they receive. The one issue is probably that, somebody may not take this exercise seriously and may put in some bugs. The other issue may be that aerial photography can shift and people are not aware of it. So then you would get data that is not in the correct location. Some data could be incomplete, and you could see what the frustration is having to work with incomplete data, but also what the challenge is to be able to map something comprehensively. So our students say they liked it because they learned that maps can have errors and that they can help other communities through the mapping. And like Maria said, you can have your mapping parties. You can see here's a conversation going on over lunch over some pizzas where they took a break between the mapping. So it's an opportunity also to have like local communities, but they could also hook up to those international communities. And then if you want to use the data in other domains or for other fields, this is also very useful and very practical, because OpenStreetMap, anybody can really map, so you don't need to be very technical. In this case, we had students mapping Alaska. Alaska is an informal settlement. It's called like that because it's in the remote areas of Pretoria where I live. It's not the Alaska in the United States. And those green routes, for example, are safe routes, and the red routes are routes that school children should avoid, because there might be open cables, and sometimes when it rains, you know, there have been people who were electrocuted when they walked there. So they try to help the schools with that. So it teaches students also how the things that are doing with the data, where it can be applied, and how it can really make a difference to people. Then this last example that I wanted to share with you is something that happened last year, where my colleague Victoria had the students develop an online platform. Melusi is also an informal settlement. It just appeared. That's the way it happens here. So one day there's an empty field, tomorrow, you know, it's a settlement. And then when the pandemic started, there was no data available about that. So the census was done a couple of years before that. The city had not yet built any roads there, so they didn't really acknowledge it. And then the students went in, and those roads that you see there in blue is what they mapped in that settlement. And if you look at the orange buildings here that they added, by adding all this information, then it was possible to plan interventions in the Melusi informal settlement. So you can see how you can also use this data and use it, for example, to teach students about public health or other kinds of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. And I don't know if there are questions with respect to what Serena presented. Or if there are no questions, we switch immediately to Michael, who is ready to teach us how to map.
Thank you, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you, Serena and Maria, for the introduction. I will start by spending a few words about what we do at the UNGC, which is the United Nations Global Service Center, the logistic base of the UN. So here we are running a program called Unite Maps. So Unite Maps is, I mean, you can think about it as the Google Maps of the UN, as we are basically ingesting and using OpenStreetMap data as a base map information layer, together with operational data coming from the headquarters, like, for example, authoritative data, as could be the boundary lines, the village names that, I mean, many times they may raise issues like political issues, to provide an applications to the peacekeepers in order to use it for their everyday activities, and especially supporting their search and navigation, and also the routing for the patrolling. As a matter of fact, we are currently working with 5 missions, which are based in Somalia, in Mali, in Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the region of Abyei, which is between on the boundary between Sudan and South Sudan. So if we check what Unite Maps is offering to them, we see that among all the services, we have definitely the street map, as well as the operational map, and the search, so the geocoding, that are basically fetching data from OSM and using it for these particular activities. So for the search, for example, they can use the Unite Maps application in order to check whether a point is coming from OSM, like maybe the location of a place, but also at the same time from the authoritative dataset. So peacekeepers are enabled to query also different datasets, let's say in a hybrid fashion. and also to use the routing, so to use directly the ways, the highways that we are tracing on OSM that we will be tracing together, or well, all the data that we are going to edit together for their routing. Let's say our main product is the topographic map. So we are producing maps of physical and human features, which could be waterways, highways, land cover, and land use, in order to fill, let's say, all the base map information that then is ingested into the different services. To do this, we do have also, let's say, a internal facility of mappers within the UN GGIM, but obviously, as you can imagine, alone we cannot do it. I mean, we need some help, and this help is coming from the overall OpenStreetMap community, and in particular, this UN Mappers community that we set up. Which is composed by the UN personnel on the field, the academic world, as well as remote volunteers and local communities that are helping us in producing the data that we need. So if you are interested in following more about the UN mappers, what you can do is to check out our social media. So we are basically everywhere. And also to check our brand new website. Sorry, this is the version in French. This is our official website that we recently published. So if you need any information, just reach out there and we can stay in touch. Also, in the future, we are recent future, we are going to open the Unite Maps Learning Hub, which will be, let's say, a repository of all the learning material dedicated to OpenStreetMap. But now let's switch to the practical things. So we will go to one project of the tasking manager. So let me recall a bit what this tool is before starting. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so whenever we want to do collaborative mapping together with other volunteers, what we do is to access the hot tasking manager, which is a web platform that is allowing us to collaborate with other volunteers at the same time in the same area. So in this platform, different humanitarian organizations are creating projects in which volunteers can coordinate. And these projects have like an initial description. So in this case, we are going to map villages and barriers in Mali, in North Aguelok, which is this, this area in Kidal. And in particular, this project is, all the projects are saying which kind of feature we are going to map. So in this case, we are mapping the residential land use as well as buildings, and also the imagery that we are going to use. So in this case, it is furnished by Maxer. There are also other descriptions later on in case you want to learn more. But one important, let's say, section is the questions and comments. Here you can directly contact the managers of the project and ask any editing question or doubt that you may have. Okay, so I will share the link of this project into the chat. So you can just click it to explore this project. And if you already created an OpenStreetMap account, we can get started. So what we do is to click on Contribute. And on Contribute, you will see a set of instructions that is, fundamental in our projects, because they are basically telling you exactly what to do and how to do it, which is, really important to produce high quality data. And what we, yes, as we said, we are using the Maxar imagery, for example. We usually adjust the imagery in order to match with the existing OSM data, in order to not to put like imagery offsets, and also we try not to over extract data. This is something that we usually recall to mappers because, like especially in desertic areas, it may happen that like there are many traces and like we don't want to produce unuseful data, but only like the essential and what is then, I mean, actually actionable by the peacekeepers. And another important part of our editing activity is the chainset comment. So the chainset comment is a descriptive sentence of our editing activity, and we usually put hashtags in order to classify our edits and to create statistics. So, for example, if we put the hashtag UN mappers, we can check all the activity of the UN mapper, of the users that mapped under the name of UN mappers. But definitely in this session, we may want also to add hashtag UN GGIM for, I mean, to identify this particular activity. And also you can also create your own hashtag, for example, about your university. So we will see together how to do it later on after the editing activity. Okay, that's it. In the following instructions, we see also how to edit data. So in this case, we are going to map residential areas. And as you can see, the work that we have to do is to produce polygons over satellite imagery. And in this case, we are mapping residential areas, so we want to enclose all the buildings within a polygon and apply a tag. So, well, in this case, we are not mapping buildings, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. And actually, it's also a useful exercise for us to understand OSM, because I mean, buildings are very easy to map and to understand. Okay, so if you already have an OSM account, we can go to the practical exercise. Otherwise, you can visit openstreetmap.org/user/new to create one account. Okay, so this is on the right that you can see is a grid. And this grid is defining all the areas in which users can, let's say, block an area. And by blocking an area, this is allowing us not to map in the same area at the same time, which may cause like concurrency problems and raise some issues at the data level. So what we do is just to select one of these squares, we can click on them. And then we start with by clicking Map Selected Task. So let me select the right editor here. Okay, so if we already logged in into the tasking manager, as you can see, if you have an OpenStreetMap account, you can log in not only to OSM, but also to other applications out there. So whether it could be the tasking manager or other third-party providers. We are already logged in with our OSM account and we can start the editing activity. So to start, I will remove this tab with this hide sidebar button so that I have more space for my editing. And I will zoom in by scrolling the mouse wheel. So, and I can pan the map by clicking the left button of my mouse. So you see, we can navigate the map, and I already saw some settlements here, informal settlements that I can map. So what I have to do is quite simple. So I will identify the area in which I suppose people are living, so this one. And I will click on the area button on top, on the top bar. and then I will click on the satellite image to create the vertices. So at each click, I'm creating a vertex, and you see I'm enclosing all the residential area, all the buildings. By double clicking, I can close my polygon, and up to now we only defined, let's say, a geometry without any semantic information attached to it. So we have to define that this is a residential area by clicking the button here. Residential area, we have the tag. Boom. So this is now a residential area. And it is easy like this. So we mapped our first small settlement. So let's try to replicate so it will be more clear for us. Let me see. Here we have another one. So as you can see, like as you can see, like there are some waterway features that we are not going to modify. So this is a wadi, a particular type of let's say geological waterway feature that we have in Africa. But let's focus on the village, on this small settlement.
Sorry,
yes,
Michael, there is a question in the chat for you, or a couple of questions. One question from Emma: how do you know the type of area? Is it based on your best guess?
Okay, so well, actually, when we are mapping in these areas, we know that these are informal settlements. If you have, I mean, if you get some experience in humanitarian mapping, you will be able to recognize them quite easily. These are mainly, you know, small settlements of people that are also, they may be also nomads, so they may be moving from one side to the other of the desert and putting up like some small huts and living there for quite a bit of time. And then maybe like some attacks occur and they have to move their villages. So for us, it's really important to map the residential areas in such a way that we can also monitor where the people are located. How I know is a residential area? Well, you know, it's like if you these are, yes, small settlements that you can find. So it's not a guess, it's like the reality.
No, but probably the question is why, for instance, in this case, it's just one, they are two separate, and you don't consider them, all of them?
Okay, perfect. If this is the question, usually well, this is up to the mapper, obviously, like mapping is sometimes subjective, but the rule for residential areas is to identify only the area in which you can suppose people are living. So you can imagine maybe one person living in this area. So let's say the area enclosing all the buildings. I usually try to keep it as small as possible. So we'll try to do like this and select the tag. But if I would put a polygon over these two areas, maybe it's too much. Like we don't know, I mean, the why these two small settlements are so far away. I mean, if you check the scale down below here, you see it's like 300 meters distance between the two settlements. So, I mean, it may be also they are two different tribes and they don't want to match with each other. So what we do is just to draw the two different residential areas.
Okay, so if they are connected and they are nearby, you put just one. But if there is some distance, you prefer to put two, because it could be that there are two different families or two different tribes.
Exactly.
And so on. Okay.
Exactly.
So we can use this rule for doing that. Okay.
Yes, definitely. And I see also another question. Why did you decide to mark it as a residential area and not building? Okay, so this is Well, these are two different things. The first one is the residential areas. That, as we said, is the place in which we imagine people are living. But we can also add the building information. So if we want to add the building, once we map the residential area, we can simply do the same procedure to create a polygon. So like here, we double click to close the polygon. And we add the building tag. So in this list, we click on building. And in this way, we created two polygons, one for the residential area and the other one for the building. So the OSM rendering is made in such a way that buildings will appear always on top of the residential area. So like if we visualize the base map of OSM, we will see that, I mean, it will be rendered. But we can do another thing. ID editor is giving us the possibility to adjust the geometries. So to do that, we just click on with the right button of the mouse on the boundary of the polygon, and you see we can select the different, let's say, different geometry operations. Like for example, we can circularize in case we have like round huts, but in this case we do have a square. So we can also press the Q key on the keyboard. But let's square it. So in this case, we are ensuring that this polygon has 90-degree angles, and is a perfect square. So we can do this for all the other buildings. But as you, yes, just one thing. As you know, like, okay, as you can imagine, if our end product is a topographic map for the peacekeepers, and usually it will have the scale, I mean, you see, these are very small already. So we are not producing usually buildings, but only residential areas. But I mean, I think for this exercise that we are doing together, also buildings are fine to map.
Yes, one point that I want to add is the point related to the overlapping between features. Because in this case, if you want also to draw the buildings, pay attention not to overlap the residential area. So to have the buildings inside the residential area, not partially outside and partially inside, in such a way to have some lines or some parts which is overlapped, because this creates problems then in managing the features.
Yes, exactly. It's also very easy to make mess on OSM, like especially beginner mappers can like make some errors without even noticing. So we usually tend not to click on other existing objects, but only to draw from scratch, and then somebody will validate our work. I mean, OSM is full of volunteers. Some of them are really some, let's say, policemen checking the quality of the data, the compliance. So, I mean, we don't have any risk on this. Okay, so
there is another question.
Yes.
So, what does the polygon line width mean? The buffering, and does it have any meaning?
No, so this is only a way of rendering for ID editor. So I don't know, they decided to do it like this. But for example, if you change editor, like another very used one is JOSM, Java OpenStreetMap. In that case, okay, maybe I can show also. So in this case, you see like the features are really lines without any buffer. So if we see, okay, we'll try to do just for an example, to create an example. Let's say we'll draw a residential area here. You see that we don't have any buffer, so it's just a matter of the rendering that the editor is choosing. So we'll put the residential. So if I put the residential, yes, I have this coloring just to, that is saying to me that this is a closed polygon with a tag, but it's just a matter of rendering from the software level, let's say.
Okay, no more questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so in my area, if I see there are two more villages, or I mean small settlements. These are hamlets. I will map them so that we can close this task. So let me be fast here. I usually don't like a lot the ID editor because it's quite clunky sometimes by clicking.
That is the best one for people starting mapping. So
Yes,
don't
exactly.
complain, say nothing about that.
No, it's the best tool to start with. Okay. Okay, I think I covered everything in my task. So as you see, I mean, whenever we are mapping from the tasking manager, we have this pink boundary that we have to respect. So we don't have to map outside our areas in order to avoid like conflicts with other mappers. So whenever we finished all our editing here, we can close the chain set. So the thing that we have to do is just to click on the top right on save. And then here you see the chain set comment with all the description of the activity that we did. An important part is the, let's say, a sentence explaining what we did in detail. But then we do have also hashtags that are, as we say, categorizing our activity. So in our case, we can add, for example, hashtag UN GGIM and also hashtag UN GGIM Academic Network. And if you want, you can add your university with the name of your university. Just one important thing is not to put, let's say, a space, because the hashtag is without spaces. So let's say that we are okay with this chain set comment. What we have to do is just to click upload, and the data will just go to the OSN database. So it will be from this moment, from this exact moment on, every user of the OSM database will access your data, and we'll see the data that we mapped. We won't see it maybe in this very exact moment from the OpenStreetMap website rendering, because the rendering is usually taking some time before visualizing our edits, but the data is there. So if somebody is downloading this area, he or she will find the data that we created. Okay, so now we have one last thing to do, and is to close the task of our of the tasking manager. So as we said, we blocked this area for our editing, and if we mapped all the villages and barriers, so all the settlements, and in this case, I mean, there weren't barriers, we can consider this task mapped. Even though like maybe other features are missing, like waterways or highways. So I think this task is completely mapped, and what I can put here is a comment by saying I mapped, I think 4 villages, 4 settlements. Or, I mean, this comment is also useful whenever you want to communicate with the managers and the authors. You can just tag them, and also you can warn them about any issue in this particular area. Like, I don't know, for example, satellite imagery is bad. So we click on submit task, and the job is done. So you will see the task to become blue, and it means that it is waiting for validation. There are also green ones that are already validated, and the logs here are people that are currently editing on these tasks. So this was pretty much it. It's pretty easy, as you see, and you can replicate with your students if you want to have to run a mapathon in your university. And that's it. Any question or comment on the editing activity?
Yes, there is one question regarding the Mapathon on March 30. Can we just participate individually or do we need to be part of university team? You can participate individually, obviously, that is something good that you can do. But if you are in contact with other students, it's good also to convince them, to elicit them in mapping in such a way that can be also funnier. Also because during the Mapathon, we will show also how it is possible to see the other people mapping in the same area where we are and so on and so on. Michael knows a lot of tricks for showing what people are doing, what people are mapping, and so we will see all this part. How does the validation process work? Okay, the validation will be done later on, but I leave again the word to Michael explaining how they do the validation. Michael? Oh.
Looks like we lost him.
Okay, so
Frozen.
yes, Michael is frozen. So I will answer. Validation is something that is done generally by expert people. So generally the people organizing the Mapathon, and if in the future you want to organize the Mapathon, please be sure that in the end there are also people in your team or yourself is able of validating the data. And validating the data means that there are some automatic tools for doing part of the validation, but then also manual work is requested to have a look. Oh, Michael is again with us, to have a look manually at the quality of the data and in case changing them. But okay, I leave you answering to this question because I know that you have a lot of experience as validator of data.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my teams decided to crash. I don't know if you can still see my screen.
No, we don't.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so the validation on OSM works as, if you are validating through the tasking manager, is basically as mapping another time. So you are just opening a task that has already OSM data traced, and you just access whether it is correct or not. What we do is recently we are trying to have validation done by volunteers as well. And the tasking manager is allowing us to restrict the validation to specific group of people. So what we do is to try to find expert volunteers to validate the data that we are tracing. And also after that, we are also running an internal validation. So we check another time that the data is correct. And after that, we are just checking a couple of things on the final product, like the maps, the quality assurance, and we submit it to the peacekeepers. I don't know if this answered or if you already answered, maybe Maria, in the meantime.
Yes, I said something, but you completed very well my answer. And I see that there is another question by Idris. Is the mapping restricted to just some areas or can it done in any area of the world, for instance, my local area in Nigeria?
Okay, so OpenStreetMap is available to anybody for any use. So what you can do is to edit also in your local area. And actually, the best thing to do is to get in touch with the regional OSN community that that you will find in Nigeria. I know there are many passionate Nigerian mappers because I know some of them. And I mean, just to make a bit of context, the OSM data, let's say, is governed by the local communities. So like they are kind of the last owners of the data that we are tracing. And also at the OSMF level, they are those that are also helping in taking the decisions and about the data of their regions. So every country ideally should have, because many in Africa don't have local communities, and this is also something that we are working on. For example, in Central African Republic, there are very hard conditions to set up communities because there is lack of internet, lack of electricity, so it's not very easy. But definitely, I think in Nigeria you will find some volunteer to contact and to run project together with them. But yes, you can map wherever you want. In particular, for our projects, we are mainly opening in areas of operations, so in the countries that I mentioned before. But also, from time to time, we are collaborating with UN agencies. I mean, we are trying to expand our activities also to UN agencies, funds, and programs. And as a matter of fact, last year we mapped in Madagascar, which is not like a really, let's say, unsecure place, but with really nice islands, and it is a really nice place. And we mapped the highways there for education accessibility. So we were mapping the road network to help the people from the International Institute of Educational Planning from UNESCO to compute the walking time from villages to schools in a region of Madagascar. So, I mean, as you see, like in OSM, you can do whatever project you want. Like there are so many possibilities. Also, like in the terms of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see that I think that there are no other questions. So at this point, if there are no other questions, I want just to recall you to go to the website of UN GGIM Academic Network and to search in the news the workshop of today. And in the end, you find the form to be filled for registering for the Mapathon the 30th of March, and to be in contact with us for the organization of this big Mapathon. I see that there are no other questions, so at this point I will close this workshop. And I want to, before doing that, I want to thank all of you for being here. And above all, I want to thank Serena and Michael for their important contribution to this workshop and to the event. So at this point, see you the 30th of March for the big...
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. One last point, maybe I was just mentioning that we can also send educational material through PDF documents in the meantime, so that we can also maybe explore other features that we may map together in the future. But also maybe it is really important to take one final picture all together.
Yes, but yes, we have to ask people
even though some are already escaping.
On the camera. It will be my first time participating, Larissa, she's saying, and we want to have our student participate as well. Yes, that's fantastic, Larissa. We are very happy about that. And please, in filling in the form, also put when, the time you are supposed to map, because I believe that there will be some defined time, like a couple of hours and so on. Yes, how would the Mapathon look like? Yes, the idea is to do the Mapathon in a virtual classroom, and this virtual classroom will be open all the day, as a matter of fact. So you can find some people there all the day. Michael all the day, and Serena and I partially one, one sometime Serena, sometime I, but Michael there all the time. And so if you arrive there with the students of your university or with your friends. If you are a student, you will find Michael, you will find Serena or I or other people as well. And you can start mapping with our help. So we will let you know which is the project. We will let you know also in advance which is the project, but we will recall which is the project. And if you need to have some help for starting mapping, we will help you. And that's that, as a matter of fact. So I don't know if I answer your question or you have other specific questions. Oh, I see also Cecile now. She's participating.
Hi, Maria. I just decided that I've been just jumping from meetings to meetings all morning. A pleasant, good, afternoon, evening to you all.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I saw you jumping also before, but it was so quick and then suddenly you disappeared. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Cecile. Cecile is also working for United Nations, and we are here with some faculty and students of different universities because we are organizing ourselves for the Mapathon of 30th of March.
Okay.
So we will wait you for the 30th of March. Don't take commitment because we need to help Michael in mapping for the peacekeeping missions in Africa.
Okay, then, noted.
Okay, thank you so much. And so I see Larissa again. Do you have an email to which we could contact for more details? Yes, sure. So besides the email of myself and Serena, that probably you already have. If you don't have, please let me know. Michael, I see that he's adding, writing, typing immediately.
Yes. So if you want to stay in touch with us, I mean the UN Mappers team, or you have any question on OSM editing, you can contact us at this mail address, un.mappers@un.org. So you will be able to reach us there for any question and doubt.
Okay. Other questions? Are there other questions? Okay, if not, we close and looking forward to mapping with you the 30th of March. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
See you there.
Thank you.
Bye, bye,
Bye.
bye.